okay? Great,
Yes.
great. Well, I want to thank the HBA for inviting me to speak with you all today. And I like that we have a small group because I'm hoping that we can actually have a pretty good discussion about the findings and some brainstorming about what's next. I'm going to share my screen. So this will take just a moment. Okie doke. Can you all see that? Look good? Okay, great. All right, so as Scott mentioned, we just wrapped up a year-long study on the skilled construction trade throughout Orange County and the larger labor shed. And the bottom line is that this study, it was conducted by the Skilled Construction Trade Study Group, which included many of you on this call today. So the gentleman from Durham Tech, just, I worked with several of your colleagues at Durham Tech, as well, of course, with the HBA, and Fitch Lumber was involved, and Build Sense, so it's good to see some familiar faces. I am hearing a little bit of feedback. I want to make sure if folks don't mind muting their line, I think that'll help. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. All right. So you should know that this study, the bottom line is through the process, we confirmed that the construction trades talent pipeline in our county, it does need attention. We identified the startup costs of a possible training center. And then the report concludes with some immediate next steps and also a long-term recommendation. And so I'm going to walk you through today basically the background on how this study came about, some framing that was helpful for the study group as well as hopefully for this conversation today. I'm going to share with you the findings of the talent pipeline. We mapped it out, as well as the feasibility. We ran the numbers on 4 different training center options. And then I want to talk through the recommendations and brainstorm some next steps with you all. Where I have the asterisks on this agenda will be points where I'm going to pause so that we can have some discussion throughout. So after I open us up and frame things up and share some findings, we'll stop, and I'll be eager to hear what you're thinking, your observations, and then we'll go a bit more and have a pause too. Sound good? Okay. All right, so first, just as background, and for those of you who are part of the study group, please bear with me. I do want to give the others where this is a first-time visibility just a good sense of what we've got going on. But you all should know that back in 2015, your Home Builders Association has been active on advocating for the development of a training center in the construction trades in Orange County. And then in about 2018, our Chamber of Commerce hosted an inner city visit to Lawrence, Kansas. And while we were there with about 75 local leaders, we took a tour of a place called Peasley Tech. And that left a pretty big impression on many of us of what's possible when you have a major training center to help people get into the trades. So folks came back from that 2018 trip, and by early 2019, former Carrboro Mayor Jim Porto called a meeting of several key folks in this industry for a tradescraft training center discussion. It was hosted at our chamber. And then just a few months after that, because there was some nice momentum that came through that conversation, Orange County Commissioner Mark Markopoulos in June proposed an amendment to the budget that would fund a study to better understand what is the current construction trades talent pipeline and the feasibility of a new training center in Orange County. So that amendment passed. And then from August to November timeframe of last year, I was working closely with some folks from Durham Tech and the HBA and the Hillsborough Chamber and a few other stakeholders. And we all agreed to collaborate. Our chamber submitted a proposal to the county government, and we secured the contract to facilitate this study. So from November to about June of this year, we conducted this study. It included meetings and interviews with about 50 key stakeholders, as well as a deep dive into the research on national, state, and regional policies and programs. It culminated in a report, an 88-page report that was released in July of this year. And in the chat feature for our Zoom call, I have links to the press release and the report. So if while I'm talking, you want to digitally sort of flip through, that you're more than welcome. Okay, so just some quick framing before we get into some of the findings. First, as you all know, the talent pipeline, it goes from learner, the learners get classes with educational providers like Durham Tech, get some work-based learning experience, and it all culminates on the bookend, other end of that talent pipeline with employers and jobs. Throughout the pipeline, of course, there's support organizations at the national, state, and regional level that provide, continuity of services, funding streams, all of that good stuff. For the construction trades, it's important to realize that what are we talking about? The skilled trades, there's actually 3 buckets. And so you've got the skilled industrial trades, the skilled service trades like nurse aides, and then skilled construction trades like carpenters, electricians, and plumbers. So for this study, we focused specifically on the skilled construction trades. As you all probably know, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics, there's 19 occupations in the construction trades. So we use this as a helpful lens as we were doing our research. And as I go through these slides, if I'm going too fast, Selena, I'll need you to give me a slow down, or if I'm belaboring any point, give me a speed it up. Okay. As you think about those 19 occupations, there are several that are considered 5-star jobs. What this is, the star job rating is a North Carolina Department of Commerce indicator where they look at the wages in occupations as well as the projected growth rate of that occupation and the level of projected job openings as well as the relative to the level of education needed for the job. And they have a 1 to 5-star rating, and those with 5 stars are considered to have the best career prospects. When it comes to the construction trades industry, there are 7 jobs that meet that top threshold of 5-star jobs, such as construction managers. So you can see on this page here, the level of median annual wage for some of these roles. It definitely caused a lot of folks during this study to sit up straight and take note. All right, and then those who do choose to go towards the construction trades, this is the general pathway to get there. So of course you can start, as a young person and do pre-apprenticeships or apprenticeship programs with your high school and college. You can do university degree programs. There's several, I think 6 universities across North Carolina that have a construction manager program. You can do some work-based learning as you go. So really what we know, the construction industry has some really nice options for students to earn and learn, right, as they go and have stackable credentials. I was really struck in a conversation with Ken Combs during this study. He's a local owner of a building custom home company, and he was saying that there was a young man he hired right out of high school with no construction skills, but a great work ethic, taught the young man quite a bit, and within 6 years he was a manager supervisor level at the company making 6 figures. So to me that was something that really stood out during this study, is this strong pathway. During this study we also took a look at some model programs. There are 4 that we studied. They all have different types of facilities, but the consistency between each of these programs is that they're all public-private coalitions that are deeply connected with their local high schools and community colleges. So from the top left to the bottom right on your screen, the top left is the Goodwill Construction Skills Training Center in Charlotte, North Carolina. This is a newly refurbished building. It's 15,000 square feet. They've got about 500 youth and adults going through the program. I believe they commenced their programs, I want to say late 2018 or 2019. It's fairly recent. Strong support from the community. This would be the Cadillac of models. So if we were to do something in Orange County at this level, you're talking pretty big bucks. The next one over on the top right is Peasley Tech. I mentioned that to you all before. That's in Lawrence, Kansas. That's an 80,000 square foot building. They offer training in many trades beyond the construction trades. And that's the one that really knocked our socks off. It happens to be co-located with a high school called the Lawrence College and Career Center. So they've effectively built an entire workforce development campus in Lawrence that is accessible. I'm getting some feedback. Okay, there we go. On the bottom left, that is in Hickory, North Carolina. That's the Catawba Valley Community College's Construction Careers Academy. That they take about 30 students a year. It's a summer pre-apprenticeship program. So it's mostly high schoolers. It's open to adults, but this program has really ended up tailoring towards high school students who go to the college for 1 week of introductory classes and safety training. And then for the rest of the summer, they are working side by side with local employers, earning and learning as they go. And many of them, when they finish the program, graduate high school and go right into the field. That is the lowest cost per participant model that I identified through this study. And then on the bottom right-hand side, that should look familiar to you because that's Waymakers, which is the skilled construction trades pathway in Durham. It is a beautiful collaborative between Durham Public Schools and Durham Tech, taking the existing programs. Together, the Durham Public Schools and Durham Tech have about 5,500 square feet of lab space for the construction trades. And what this Waymakers is doing is really connecting the dots for students to get on a clear pathway. Okay, I just want to check in. So now I'm going to go into some of the findings from the study, but does anyone have any comments or questions or concerns before I go a little further?
Yeah, feel free to unmute yourself, ask the question, or put them in the chat box.
And Selena, if anyone does a comment or anything in chat, I'll need your help to flag it,
Okay.
just because it's hard for me to see the comment boxes I'm sharing.
No worries. I got you. Okay.
All right, so hearing none, I'm going to press on. Okay, so here's what we found in the study. This is now mapping the talent pipeline. That's one of 2 deliverables that the county commissioners asked for in this study. And so when you look at Orange County, the talent pipeline, what do we know about the learners? Well, what we learned is that the primary prospective learner, if we were to build a construction trades training center in Orange County, would be re-careering adults. That would include immigrants, and then those who have formerly worked in like retail, hospitality, and other COVID impacted industries who are going to look to re-career, and the construction trades could be a really nice pathway for them. The secondary population that emerged from this study are high school students. And there was a big caveat that we heard consistently in our interviews, and that is that there is a widespread, longstanding negative perception of the trades in Orange County by the parents of high school students, generally speaking. This is not an insurmountable barrier, but it is something that in the recruiting effort for high school students, it might take some extra effort, not just to reach the students, but the parents to help them understand why this pathway has so many virtues for their student. The third thing you all should know when it comes to learners is the Hillsborough Chamber has a really interesting program that they recently launched called STEER. It's the Students Transforming Expectations and Exploring Real Opportunities. It's a bit of a mouthful, but just think STEER. And this is a career exploration program where Kim at the Hillsborough Chamber is taking like a dozen students each year and takes them on hands-on experiences, touring facilities and opening the young people's eyes to what's possible in a career. And they look at about half a dozen different career options that are all strong options for them in Orange County. One of them is the construction trades. And within the first year of the launch of STEER, they were awarded a statewide 4-H award for being an exceptional program. So just so you know, that is out there. Okay, educational providers. So as we're moving along our talent pipeline, this is what we know about our educational providers. We found that there are minimal training opportunities for the skilled construction trades in Orange County. So other than the CTE programs at Orange Public Schools and a new program that started in July called Hope Renovations, this is a program operating out of a warehouse at Fitch Lumber, and it's a new program with a small cohort-based model for mostly for disadvantaged women. They take about a dozen at a clip for like a 9-week program, and that just launched in July. So other than the CTE, Hope Renovations, and then any on-the-job training that employers are doing, that's it. So if learners want to get formal training in the construction trades, they need to go to surrounding counties. And then as far as surrounding counties, I talked with the community colleges. They're all offering programs in the surrounding counties, but what I was hearing again and again is that these programs are largely at capacity, and that transportation to these programs for Orange County residents can be a real barrier for many. I want to make sure, some of you may not have seen some of the existing programs in Orange County, so I want to make sure you get your eyes on them. So these are some pictures of Orange High School Construction Lab and the Cedar Ridge High School Woodworking Lab. So pretty great facilities. And then here is a glimpse of what's happening with the new program, Hope Renovations, out of the warehouse at Fitch Lumber. And this was literally, I think, like day one when the program launched. Okay, and then the last bit on mapping the talent pipeline are the employers. Here's what we learned about the employers in the construction trades. First of all, your industry ranks in the top 10, both in the number of enterprises as well as your overall sales. Businesses and organizations that are hiring people in the construction trades, you've got small, mid-sized, and large businesses all hiring. Think of Sparrow and Sons Plumbing, or Resolute Building, or Summit Engineering. We also have nonprofits and educational institutions, so think of UNC Chapel Hill and UNC Health. They all have facilities they need to maintain, so they're constantly hiring. And then lastly, government agencies. Orange County was a part of this study and confirmed that they had a tough time finding prospective employees to maintain their facilities. So there's definitely needs for not just new construction and installation of new products, but also the maintenance and repair of facilities and infrastructure. So there's a wide range of needs that we're seeing among employers, and these high demand jobs, this is well documented. I mean, across the state of North Carolina and the nation, this is a common understood challenge. In North Carolina, it was reported that construction companies have a higher level of difficulty in filling their positions, and they have longer vacancies than any other industry in the state. You all have some serious needs. This talent pipeline is broken right now. That is what we found. So let me pause there. We just talked about our current talent pipeline. It obviously needs attention. Any feedback or anything we're missing in this study, or observations, things that comport or don't comport with your own experiences, I welcome your feedback.
I can just say that from the perspective of parents' thoughts on where their kids should be directed as far as college, I can definitely echo that sentiment. I know that, I mean, my oldest is 17, and so I talk to his friends' parents and that sort of thing, and it's still, if you don't go to college, it's, you know, not necessarily a loser, but the college is the only path. So I really appreciate, and I've been pushing all my children to think toward other paths instead of college, because everybody has a different path and should be given a different path. So.
Yeah, there's two things, Emily, that came up in this study that I think really validate what you just shared. One is a conversation about equity was a thread among our stakeholders. So there was real concern that in Orange County, multiple pathways aren't encouraged. It's just the singular pathway towards college that's encouraged. And the point that was really coming through is students who would really be well served in a different pathway are not getting that opportunity, and that's not fair, because they could do really well. So an equity theme came up. And then the second thing that came up was some of the model programs we talked with shared that was a very real challenge for them as well, of just getting the parents to buy in to let their high schoolers even participate in the CTE programs or the pre-apprenticeship programs. So they created presentations for an orientation to even just recruit students into their program that included the salaries of along the career pathway. And they said that really helped the parents sort of open up their eyes and realize this is a worthy pathway for them to consider and encourage their young person. What else? Y'all are a quiet bunch. Okay,
I have a question. Have you noticed any change in women? The number of women entering into the construction field in whatever capacity?
The only, that wasn't a direct part of the scope of this study, but we did come across an article, I think it was in the Charlotte News and Observer, that highlighted the disproportionate impact that the coronavirus contractions in the economy was having on women in particular, and that the construction industry could be a very compelling pathway for women, and that the construction industry, what was this? I'll have to go back to my notes. It's in the report in one of the final chapters, and it called out the fact that most every industry is disproportionately affecting women negatively, but that the construction industry has the most potential for that to not be the case. I don't know if any of you caught that. I think, David, you might have been on an email from Nora sharing that study. Do you recall that?
Hey, Katie, it's Nora.
Oh, hey, Nora.
Hey, actually, I think David's brother Miles sent that to me, and I sent that to you. So I'm happy to send out that link. But yeah, it was the majority of job losses in North Carolina due to the coronavirus are women's job losses, because there's so many service and retail job losses. But overall, the construction industry losses are only about 3% of all unemployment. So there's a real opportunity there for women. Thanks, Nora. Great to see you. Because of the screen share, I can only see a few windows, so I don't see everyone on the call. So glad to see you now.
Hey, Katie, this is Randy. I just wanted to weigh in. Been thinking a lot about women in construction over the last years. And I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, I was at the International Builders Show, and attended a series of different classes. And one of them reminded me of a statistic that I've heard many times before, and that's that more than 90% of decisions about a new house are made by if it's a couple, it's made by the female of the couple. And that hasn't left me, because I keep thinking about that people like to buy from and work with something as sort of a reflection of themselves, essentially. And I'm not saying this well, but I think that there's a huge missed opportunity for women in construction, particularly on the customer-facing side. And I think that should be part of the effort moving forward as we encourage folks to enter the trades. So.
Thanks for that. I'm making a note. That's really helpful. And you made me, in pointing that out, you also helped me remember green building was something that came up from our stakeholders, and I know that's something that this group cares about. Central Carolina Community College in Chatham has a very strong program from everything that I've read and heard. And One thing that's interesting, and Ben from Durham Tech, you might have some more insight on this, but what I was hearing through this study is that our community colleges have something like a gentleman's agreement. And so they only recruit and actively market to students within the counties they serve. So what that means is that Orange County potential students are served by Durham Tech. And Chatham has that great program from Central Carolina Community College, but they won't necessarily actively market that to Orange County residents. So there could be a real just information gap, especially for residents who maybe live closer to the Central Carolina Community College campus rather than the Durham Tech campus.
Along the same lines of green building, and coupled with the fact about the how choices are made in the home design and building process for green builders specifically, and there's some really great articles and research done on this by the Home Innovation Research Labs that administer the National Green Building Standard. But the main message is that women lean green. So if you have more than 90% of women making the choices about home design and construction, and you have women preferring, in particular, healthy environments for their families, that you put those two things together, and again, it just points to a missed opportunity if we're not trying to reflect that in our workforce and our customer-facing workforce in particular.
And Randall, I'd like to say something about, kind of tag on to what you're saying. I don't work directly in the construction field. I work for a nonprofit and I'm over the maintenance department. But I also am a licensed home inspector and do side home repair, mainly for women who own their homes, and for elderly and for the people who are elderly. And I have found that being a female, it has been to my advantage because people trust me more, because I hear it over and over and over again that I'm so glad I found somebody I can trust. And I've had people, I've met them one time and they've given me a key to their house and said, anytime I call you, just come in and fix it. And so it's just, I think women have the opportunity to really create that relationship for more with builders and with people who need that connection. Women seem to make the connection, not that men can't do that. There's just a natural ability, a natural way of that women will trust women more likely before they trust a guy, because I've found that so many women have been kind of misguided, and not that all men do that, but they just, somebody has just said, hey, yeah, I'll fix that for you, and they've created more problems, so then I'll come in and kind of fix it. And so there's a lot of little bit of trust that's missing, and I think women can really tap into that if they want to get into the field and create their own business. I don't advertise, and it's all word of mouth for me. I don't market or anything, and so I have more work than I can handle working a full-time job. But I just tell people, if you're willing to wait, I can get to you. But it's based on trust and that perception of trust. So I just wanted to kind of put that in there.
Thank you. That was something that did not come through in this study, but it's an interesting point of just the conversation about gender and potential in the industry. So that's something that I've taken a note on. I appreciate it. All right, I'm going to move us along. The next bit I want to go through with you all so that you have full visibility of it is the feasibility findings. So we ran the numbers on 4 different site types for a future training center in Orange County. So I'm going to walk you through the modeling that we did so you can have visibility of the numbers, what it would cost if the county were to proceed, and then we'll pause to discuss. So just so you know, these estimates were generated by 2 local, very respected engineers, Dan Jewell and Phil Post. We looked at 4 types. First was to contract an existing training program. So we looked at Hope Renovations. We also looked at the option of leasing an existing warehouse and then buying an existing warehouse. And then lastly, we looked at the option of constructing a brand new facility on county-owned land. As we went into these site types to the best extent possible, we really tried to find sites that match some key variables. We preferred locations that were accessible as far as close to the interstate, access to public transportation, a site where you could maybe start and then scale, expand the program offerings and footprint. And also we were hovering around generally a 10,000 square foot size training center. So first, again, the contracting an existing training program, we took a close look at Hope Renovations in Carrboro at Fitch Lumber. For the leasing of an existing warehouse, there were not many options, candidly, in Orange County. We had Johnny Morris pool everything that was available, and it was thin. But this actually is a very attractive option. The Eno River Mill site, these can be built out pretty easily. They're ready to go. So we ran the numbers on leasing one. And then buying an existing warehouse up by Summit Engineering. There's a space available for purchase. So we ran the numbers on that. And then lastly, using county-owned land to construct a facility. This was really pretty disappointing. There were not many county-owned parcels available in any sort of prime location for this, but this is a parcel in Eflin that was available at the time of the study. It is no longer available, is what I'm told, but we took a look at that. So here's the table with the estimates. What you can see is the Hope Renovations option to subcontract with them would be sort of a negotiable hourly rate. If we wanted to lease an existing warehouse like the Eno River Mill property, you're looking at about $1 million for a 5-year lease. And then if you wanted to buy an existing warehouse, you're looking at about $2 million for the renovation costs and such. And then lastly, to construct a new facility on county-owned land, you're looking at about $2.5 million. And these are just startup costs, so this does not include running the actual program. Okay, I'm going to pause there. So you saw some numbers. I'm not sure if this is sticker shock or what you all are thinking as far as these price points.
Katie, when you say run the actual program, you mean develop a program that doesn't exist to connect these potential talent and get them trained for the workforce, like creating some type of training program is what you're talking about?
Yes, and so it would be like the operations. The cost on this table is just the startup cost to get the infrastructure in place, the building built or renovated, the construction lab built out with the equipment for the training. But when it comes to the costs of operations, salaries, security, keeping the lights on, all that kind of stuff, that's not a part of this model. So that would be sort of another whole annual table of costs.
Mm-hmm. And just curious, like, because all of this is new to me, and I'm always curious as where, like, was there any collaborating with a community college that already has a program, but that's just not robust? Is that part of making anything that we have stronger? Was any of that, was there any options like that out there?
There actually, one of the things that emerged from this study is a really interesting offer from Durham Tech. So just in the last 2 years, they have changed a long-standing policy. Traditionally, Durham Tech, if you wanted some kind of programming for Orange County residents, you would be told, great, they can go to Durham County where the program is being offered, go onto the campus. And in the last just a couple years, they changed that policy and are now willing and open to sending faculty to different locations to teach. I mean, obviously there would need to be memorandums of understanding and such, but that is a new thing that's emerged that we learned through this study. So it's one of the findings and recommendations that we're going to talk about in just a bit. And I do want to say that from everything I observed and my site visits with Durham Tech, their construction training program is strong. They've got a lot of really nice options that are very in line with the employer's needs. The welding programs are really popular. They're expanding their space. Again, it's through Waymakers. It's increasingly aligned with Durham Public Schools. So there's a lot of really good things to see there. Any other comments or feedback on the costs of a potential training center?
Kate, if nobody has any, I want to give it another 30 seconds because I have another question, but it's a little off from.
Mm-hmm. Please go ahead.
Okay. One of the things, so when I got started in construction, the pathway that I found was through AmeriCorps and working with Habitat in order to gain my skills and trade skills. And that was the fastest path for someone with pretty much, well, I mean, to be honest, and this is 20 years, 18 years ago now, but for someone with no hard construction skills, a young female coming in the industry, and actually within 2 years being able to like lead a construction crew, that was a very powerful path. And so I didn't know if that had opportunity had made its way. We have a lot of Habitat affiliates in there, and the AmeriCorps program with those affiliates around here. I mean, we've hired folks through there, and I do think some of them that go through that program do end up, you know, working for builders or working in the construction trade afterward.
That's really terrific feedback. It is pulled through in this study to a small extent. So AmeriCorps did not come up, and I'm glad you flagged that, but Habitat did. So when we looked at educational providers, we grouped them into formal programs and informal programs. And by that I mean formal would be those that culminate in a diploma, certificate, degree, some kind of credential. And then the informal would be things like Habitat, where you have this volunteer experience and you get some skills, but not necessarily some sort of certificate. And in the final report, we have about 20 pages of tables, and it literally just lists all the key stakeholders across the talent pipeline, and Habitat is one of those listed. So we don't pull it through in sort of the bigger findings, but it is acknowledged.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing that came up for me with that was AmeriCorps. I don't know how functional, but when you talk about reaching out to high school kids and parents and trying to bridge that gap, since that whole program is designed to literally offset any future, you know, they give you don't make hardly anything while you're in AmeriCorps, but you do have, you do earn money to offset education, like financing your future education. So,
yeah, that educational stipend is wonderful.
Yeah.
I think there'll be opportunities to better elevate that in the coming months and years. Thank you.
Yeah, same, especially for construction.
All right, I want to move us along to the recommendations in this study because I particularly want to make sure your heads are on this and that you're thinking about how the HBA may want to advance this work. So just to recap, this was a nearly year-long study. It involved meetings and interviews with 50 key stakeholders, extensive research. We've got this final report. We had 3 key findings for our region. First, the study validated that there is a construction worker shortage and employer demand continues despite the pandemic-related economic contraction. Second, there are several occupations in the construction trades with strong income opportunities and projected growth. And third, while the construction job opportunities are robust, training for these occupations in Orange County is limited at best. So think of our recommendations in 2 buckets. We've got some immediate short-term things we can do right now, and then we have some long-term stuff, okay? So as far as the immediate, this study really helped us surface a few key things, and Ben at Durham Tech, I think you'll appreciate several of these. First, we identified that there's a need for funding of new construction classes in the county, and the lift may not be as heavy as we first thought when we began this study, because with the policy change at Durham Tech, where their faculty can go from the campus to a different location, it is conceivable that Durham Tech could be contracted to teach classes at, say, Orange High School in the evenings or weekends. So that's an option. Another option is possibly the space where Nora is. Durham Tech faculty could conceivably be contracted there, or Nora's group, Hope Renovations, could be contracted to expand their services to more people. So funding is one of the first short-term next steps. If we can identify some funding, we could relatively easily and relatively low cost expand course offerings and training opportunities in Orange County. Second, there is an opportunity to support the launch of a new HVAC training program at the Chapel Hill-Carrboro City Schools. Their CTE program at Chapel Hill-Carrboro City Schools doesn't have any construction trades related programming. This HVAC would be, we think, a really nice program to add to their portfolio. So one that we would hope this group would support. Also, just cheering on and supporting the Hillsborough Chamber's STEER program to help younger kids get into this, exposed to this pathway. Third, the third and final short-term next step that we were able to surface from this study is expanding Waymakers so that it doesn't just include Durham-based entities, but it also includes Orange County entities. And from what I've learned in this study, that was in the original vision and intent of Waymakers. And so now that Waymakers is up and running and going well, it could be a nice time to intentionally expand it to Orange County and include Orange County and Chapel Hill-Carrboro City Schools. Then the long term. So those were the immediate, short-term, reasonable things. The long-term strategy that we're seeing come out of this study. The construction industry is not alone. There are actually several industries that would benefit from increased economic and workforce development focus. Healthcare and biopharma, information technology, professional services, logistics, electrical, and automotive are all industries that have high projected growth and demand in the next 10 years, according to all the data I was seeing at the state level and regional level. So our long-term recommendation, basically Orange County does not have a strategic plan on what they want to do on workforce development. So the feedback, candidly, that I'm going to tell your group is, as I was socializing the findings from this study with some of our county commissioners, I got the sense there's almost like a little bit of flopping around. They want to do this, but they don't know how to prioritize construction with other industries and what does Durham Tech want and the future of the campus. There is a real opportunity for key stakeholders like yourselves and others to come together and help with the county to develop a very clear 10-year workforce development plan that will be based on the best information that we have as far as the greatest needs and what will be the competitive advantage for the county, and allow that, if it takes the next year to write this study, and the findings can inform how investment should be spent in the coming years, such as for a construction training center. So it would be a comprehensive workforce development plan would be our recommendation. And so here's a side-by-side slide, and I'm going to pause on it so that you all, I really want to hear your feedback and what you're thinking might stick or where you're feeling energy. But we've got some short-term next steps and then this long-term workforce plan strategy. What are your thoughts?
Katie, this is Leon. On the HVAC training program at Chapel Hill-Carrboro, what I know about Durham Tech's HVAC program makes me think it's been particularly successful. And I know Ben is on the call here, and he may have some insights about that, but I hope whoever is working on that will look at what has made Durham's HVAC program, Durham Tech's HVAC program, particularly successful.
Thank you. I can relay that too, Ben. You and I can both reinforce it with Mariah and Jackie.
Sorry about that. I didn't catch the beginning. I just got my office door knocked on, which never happens these days. I know that Mariah has been working on the HVAC program expansion. I didn't catch the first part of that, but I know that I'm going to relay some of this back to her.
Great. Yeah, Mariah I worked very closely with her on this whole study. And one thing you can relay back to her, Ben, Leon's point is if Chapel Hill-Carrboro City Schools ends up potentially advancing the HVAC program, it'd be great for Durham Tech to not only weigh in, but share any best practices. Just making sure, Mariah, you and her and the team at Durham Tech are coordinating with the Chapel Hill-Carrboro City Schools. That would be Kathy Brewer.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that she's in conversation with her already.
What else?
I'll be sure.
Hey, Katie, it's Nora. I just wanted, I know we've had multiple conversations about this over a very long period of time. And I think one thing that has come up a lot when we've been discussing this, and I thought it might be interesting to this group, is there's an opportunity here for the type of training that we do and the type of training that Durham Tech and other community colleges do, which are different, to come together in a really meaningful way for Orange County and for Orange County employers. We sort of, at Hope Renovations, our curriculum is a pre-apprenticeship curriculum. So it's very much like entry-level basic skills, basic knowledge of safety, tools, materials, and sort of getting that early amount of experience you need to be able to have the confidence to then go to Durham Tech and take on a lot of the coursework that they have. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for us and for the community colleges to make this work in a meaningful way. I feel like the time is now because of coronavirus, and I'm really excited about it. And I just want to say I appreciate all the work that you've done towards this, because it's been amazing and it's very much needed.
Thank you. I like how you emphasize the different curriculum, and that in itself is a pathway. You're emphasizing that folks can go to Hope Renovations, go through your training, and then continue stacking up skills and credentials through Durham Tech's offerings. And hopefully Durham Tech's offerings will also be offered, in Orange County at some point in the near future.
I want to add that we do offer classes currently that people join from Orange County. I mean, there are student percentage, I know it's written in the report. And then we are hybrid and in person right now. And hopefully that'll continue. I'm teaching 2 classes right now, welding tonight and core, the back to work initiative today. But carpentry's meeting in person, and we're hoping to continue that as things progress through the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that came through in the study, which I found kind of shocking, is that statewide employers in the construction industry, while they desperately need, great employees, aren't necessarily recruiting as much through their community colleges as they are through things like internet, like Monster, or those kind of platforms. And so I suspect everything I heard through my conversations and interviews in this study were quite to the contrary. I got affirmation after affirmation from employers saying they're working with Durham Tech to recruit, future employees. So I think something's different going on here in our region. Probably a big credit to Waymakers, but that was something that I definitely paused on, and I included in the study that's a potential problem, that we could do more to better promote Durham Tech as a source for recruiting talent.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, I've got industry coming into my classes almost every semester, and talking to students ready to hire. It comes down to the individual as well to pursue the next steps. I've seen opportunities pass for some folks that don't pursue the next step. An email, an application, after even going through pretty substantial training. So they're out there, they're interested. Partners that we work with, at least And I know that I've heard a lot of conversation about there's no lines. You know, the companies are really, they don't care if it's Durham County or Orange County, Chapel Hill-Carrboro, for really reliable individuals ready to work and train or build their skill sets.
Yep. Yeah, I want to point out that you all at the HBA, it was about 5 years ago where Holly, when I think she, early in her tenure leading your organization, did a ton of research and got everything ready to launch a training center. And then there was a pause. And I think at that point, one of the biggest pauses was a concern that you'd build it and then there wouldn't be enough students in the pipeline. And I think through this study, what we're finding is that if it were risky then, it's less risky now, especially as Nora said, with the COVID contraction and people thinking about re-careering, this actually could be an ideal time to move forward with a training center. Any thoughts on that? Or we only have a few minutes left on this, but I want to make sure I get y'all's input here.
How hard is recruitment? Like, is that part of what we would need to put? I mean, part of this pathway is getting the word out that this is an opportunity. So, like, is Durham Tech, are your classes full? And Nora, have you had a lot of applications or?
For us, so I think to answer your question, it depends on the population you're recruiting from. I think that one of the problems with the program that Katie was just referring to, that Holly put together a few years ago, was not a problem, but it became an issue, was they were focused on high school students. And we live in a world, like we've talked about, where high school students are pushed to go to college and the trades aren't cool enough. You know, our population that we're focusing on are re-careering adults, and specifically women, and we have had no problem recruiting. We're recruiting right now for our second cohort. Our first cohort's graduating next Saturday, and our second cohort starts October 5th. We've had almost 30 applications for an 8-person program, and that's just Orange County women. So, you know, it just depends on the population, I think. We haven't had a problem.
And everything I studied from Durham Tech, both on their continuing ed side of the house and their curriculum side of the house, is largely at capacity. So there's a strong interest in the programs, but a majority of the students are Durham residents. And so we didn't unpack the reasons why. I mean, obviously proximity, it's, you know, the class offerings are closer to Durham residents, but we suspect that if more programming were offered in Orange County, that there would be a interested pipeline comparable to what we're seeing in Durham.
I just want to make a comment that well, concerns about recruitment were very much were a very big deal when we were thinking about the training centers through the HBA. It was not the only challenge or barrier that we saw, or the reason that ultimately didn't come out of the ground. I think there was fundamentally a problem also that it was a volunteer-driven organization with a staff that was designed to drive an association, and it was a great big leap to go from that to staffing up and either adopting or setting up curriculum for a training center. It's a and I think even just as your facilities cost showed when you went to that slide, I wasn't surprised by those. We looked at those kind of numbers as well. It's a big leap to make, and you need some pretty serious funding, and you need some pretty serious skilled staff to be able to put something like that together. So not whining, I'm just saying that the availability of students was not the only thing that stopped us in our tracks.
That's really helpful, Randy. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, it sounds like it is it's a worthwhile and significant undertaking, and you're right, it would take a good bit of capacity and costs. So it's something that should be thoughtfully done. My hope is that this study helps people make very informed decisions if they are going to step in that direction, and that the home builders, that you all would feel that you have some fuel in the fire. If you do want to proceed in this direction, we have something very tangible. The county commissioners all have it. They need to put it on their agenda and talk about it. That's something that I'll be working with Holly on to see if we can get some advocacy going to make this a priority in the next couple months. We'll need you all engaged in those conversations and letting the commissioners know that this is a priority and they need to keep their eye on the ball. But hopefully this is a good foundation for thoughtful conversations about return on investment, right? Well, Selena, that's all I've got for y'all.
That was great. I mean, that's a lot of information, you know, a lot of information to digest and to understand, and knowing what the depth of studies that you guys put through and the different options that has been vetted, and understanding, okay, now what's the next steps, and, you know, how can HBA DOC and our High Performance Building Council, you know, what can we do, and you know, and understanding what those options are and how we can get involved and the push that we can do from our end. So no, this is absolutely great information. And we've got the study. You guys have got the study. You're going to send me a link, a different link, or is it the same link that of the study, the more revised study? Is that what you have?
The study itself, I put that link in the chat for our conversation today, so that will not change. But what I am going to do is, there were a few slides that I did not show you all today. It's just extra stuff, and I think I'm going to trim that off, and I'm going to upload the presentation I used today into SlideShare, and I'll get you, Selena, that link to that SlideShare, so that if you all have anyone else who you think needs to, if they don't want to read an 88-page report, but they might look at a few slides, I want to make that an option too. So I'll get you that URL.
Perfect. That sounds great. And of course, anybody who's on the call here, if you think of questions after we hang up, and, you know, and happy to, you know, send those to me, and I'm happy to forward those to Katie, and to circle back. So I think that's great. Did anybody else have some feedback and comments?
Katie, I've told you this before, but I just want to thank you for all your work with this. I know it's been a long journey in the last, year and a half maybe or something, since we started looking at this, and you did a fantastic job getting all the information and wrapping it up to submit to the county commissioners. So just want to say thanks again for that.
Thank you, David. That means a lot. I appreciate that. Thank you. It's been a professional and personal joy, actually. I learned a lot about your industry. I'm new to it. And also just writing a report that can have some real gravitas and heft to be able to make the case towards moving forward. So I really enjoyed it. Thank you.